Hey, it's the Brainworth Show coming to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. I am your host, Damon Brown. I am the host. I am the executive producer. I am the editor. I am the manager. Shout out to the Karens out there. and yeah, welcome. I come to you again every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Talking about the best insights I can give. I'm a two-time entrepreneur. Both times is when I was primary caregiver of our first and now second son. Ended up selling my second startup, Cuddler, after myself and my co-founders bootstrapped it. And now I'm helping other folks get to where they need to be, the so-called, or what I call, the non-traditional entrepreneurs, folks that represent different communities, different resources, not just financial. People talk about money all the time, but it's also a resource to mental capital, resource to networks. I'm about to go to the TED conference. It's my 11th TED conference or something. I've spoken at the main conference on the second stage. My first TED talk about 10 years ago. Man, it was almost been 10 years ago. So it was 2014. And my first son was 9 months old and flew up to Vancouver and to Whistler, Canada to do the talk. So I've been going there for like 10 years. I'll talk about that more in a moment. But even with like the amount of money it takes to get up there and the childcare and all other stuff, the amount of resources, mental discussion, stimulation, access that I've gotten just from being involved with the conference, being a speaker there, but also just showing up. I'm just showing up next week. It's a different type of vibe. I'm here to help all of y'all ideally get that kind of access, whether that's me being a conduit for it, or you just getting that yourself. So that's what the show is about: emotional intelligence, productivity, passive income, all those things that you need to get cool stuff done from your station in life. You subscribe to the show for free. The link's below. If you're on Amazon, shout out to y'all. On YouTube, shout out to y'all. LinkedIn, wherever you happen to be watching this, even if you're listening, the link is right down below. Shout out to people that are listening on the podcast side only because, surprise, some of this stuff is going on audio too. So if you're listening, love to have you here as well. Speaking of TED, it's kind of the longest lead in. Oh, and of course, my book, Career Remix, Get the Gig You Want based on the skills you got. If you're on Amazon, you'll see the link linked up there. You can go ahead and grab it from your favorite bookstore or get a copy at damonbrown.net. Let me go ahead and throw the link up for you guys that are in the studio. Amazon link is right there. Or you can get it at your favorite indie bookstore at bookshop.org. I always screw up the link, but the link is below. And yeah, it came out about a year ago. Thank you for all the support. All right. So most exciting thing happening is I'm going to TED. Very excited. You have to get invited. And so you have to pay and all these other things. But before you do all that, you have to get invited. And I got invited again, so I appreciate that. Like I said, I've been going for just over a decade. Obviously not the couple of years that we were sheltering in place. We did the virtual joints then. I've done 4 TED Talks. You can find all of them linked at youtube.com/BrownDamon. My big question, though, this is the first time I'm going to TED, and I'm actually going to still be doing my show, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Because the other TEDs that I went to over the last couple of years, they're either impromptu or they were off-site. They were a little bit, frankly, awkward because we were trying to figure out what to do. We, as in the TED community. But now it seems like things are at least straight this time. And so I might even be doing some reporting throughout the week. I have a column over in Inc. magazine. The link is in this link. But if you click the link right now, I'm asking the community, which has grown like 20x since the beginning of the year. No exaggerating. Y'all really come through. If you're interested in me, in my reporting from TED and the stuff I'm going to talk about, particularly after I get back from TED, usually I'll talk about it on the show and do videos related and all that stuff 6 months after I come from TED. And that's been some of the most popular and based on what y'all have told me, exciting stuff I brought back from TED. Click on the link below. There's actually my social media feed or my community feed for the Bring Your Worth channel. Click on there. About a couple posts down, depending on when you click on this, it would have been a post that was put up the evening of April 11th. That's a Tuesday. I asked what I should bring back from TED. And there's about 4 or 5 different options as far as things that I can focus on while I'm at TED and then bring back for y'all. There's some TED Talks that are going to be about AI. As you can imagine, the CEO of TikTok's going to be speaking. Woo! If you're here in the States, you know the vibe. That should be an intense talk. I look forward to hearing it. All these different things. I might even be connecting with some of these folks in person. Click on the link, go a couple posts down. What should I bring back from TED? There's 4 or 5 options. It's just a simple poll. It'll take you 2 seconds. Let me know what y'all want me to focus on. And then I'll bring back some of that energy when I get back from TED a week and a half from now. So I'm leaving this weekend. I'm excited and all that good stuff. All right. Enough song and dance. Tax and money tips for creatives. First thing, I am not a CPA. I'm not a CFO. I'm not C3PO. Like, I'm none of those. No letters. No, I got my master's in magazine publishing, but they don't give you any letters for that. That's the only letters I got, right? That's the only letters I got. So if you're coming here and listening to me as a financial advisor, please do not. I'm trying to make sure my bills are straight, my family bills are straight, right? That said, right now here in America, I don't know about the UK. I don't know about Canada either. Shout out to my Canadians. I'll be seeing you guys in a few days over in Vancouver. This week is tax week. And so every April 15th here in America, your tax forms are due for the previous year. So I'm speaking to you from the year 2023. And so 2022, my partner and I, my wife and I, we've turned in our papers. We're trying to work with a tax preparer. We'll get into that and make sure that our stuff is straight, but they have everything, right? Since it falls on a weekend, I think we're extended to Monday, and I believe Monday is the 18th. Forgive me if I get that wrong. It's the 17th or the 18th, but it falls on a weekend, it gets pushed. This happens every single year. This is a time where the previous year's stuff needs to be calculated. You get your receipts in order and all that stuff. I've been an independent contractor. I've been a freelancer. I've ran my own businesses, plural, all these different things, sold some business and all that over the course of, we're approaching decades now. Money management is really important, also very difficult. I still have challenges with it too. So again, I'm not coming as an expert, but I'm happy to share what I have, what I've experienced, as well as learning the hard way sometimes that you got to get your taxes right. So today we're going to talk about, if you're still trying to get your stuff together, or if you're watching this in the future and you're trying to get your stuff together ahead of time, which I highly recommend, give you all the best tips I have as far as with money, managing things, and as far as handling your taxes. This stuff, again, is US based. It's the only place I've ever lived is in the United States. Traveled a bit, but I always have lived here. So everything I'm talking about is specific to the United States. Be sure and look. I'm sure your government has a ton of websites. I know ours does, that will inform you about your particular local thing. There's also nuances too. Like, for instance, I live in Las Vegas, which is in the state of Nevada. Nevada in general does not have state tax. And so there are certain taxes that my family and I, since we moved here a few years ago, don't have to do. Whole nother story about that. We can get into that in another episode. Like pop culture, history, whatever. Let's just say it has to do with the casinos. There are other states. I believe Florida has much lower state tax as well. I believe Texas has some type of tax thing going on too. Shout out in the comments if you're from those areas and or if you know. Anyway, so it's even the stuff I'm talking about is very specific to my experience in the handful of places I've lived across the country, as well as my experience as a few decades, couple decades, whatever, of being independent. So that's what we're going to talk about. Be sure and put some questions down there if you have questions in regards to money management or specifically how to deal with taxes. So there's a couple questions that already came in that I'm going to throw up here. There it is. All right. Not sure if you guys can see the banner. Give a shout out if it's too small. All right. So let's put that away. Do I need a tax preparer? Yes and no. Right? Famous answers. When I first started as a freelancer, as an independent, many moons ago, shortly after grad school. I didn't have a tax preparer. I didn't have a tax preparer for a handful of years until I started making some money. Like, it was a few years there where I would turn in my taxes and the government would just be like, yeah, we're even because you made $10,000 this year. Like, what are we going to take? Like, you hold on to your money. Let's just talk to you next year when you make more money, right? I think a lot of us can relate to that situation. That's how it starts. That's why I recommend side hustles as opposed to plunging directly in, which I plunged directly in. These gray hairs come from direct things. These aren't random. These aren't just from age. But listen, though, I did start to get a tax preparer when I started doing books. This is my particular journey because as an independent journalist, I was making, like I said, not a whole lot of money. But when I started signing book deals, then book deals would be 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, like that kind of range. And suddenly, as they say, you start to go into a different bracket. Then I started working with tax preparer probably about 5-6 years into my business. It was around the time that the book started moving. And there are two things I would say about tax preparer. Number one, if they can catch certain things that you're not going to catch unless you're a CPA or you're certified with the tax code and you're right. And the tax codes change every year. So you're going to catch certain things that you absolutely will not catch. And when I say tax preparer, I don't mean H&R Block. No shots at them. But I mean like an individual that says, I'm a tax preparer, blah, blah. There's a couple tax preparers that I worked with that specifically worked with freelancers. So they knew how to, how to make a deduction based on your office space, things of that nature. For instance, with my office space, you're pretty much seeing my whole office. There's not much more here. A couple kids' toys here and there for my boys, but that's pretty much it. But every year when we talk to our tax preparer, who my wife and I have been with for a few years, they already know that there's a house we've lived in. So this 10 by 10 space or whatever it is, 10 by 12, this 10 by 12 space, it's automatically factored in to be deducted from our mortgage because this portion of the house, aside from me taking an occasional nap over there, other than that, nothing else happens here but me talking with y'all, me doing coaching, and me working. That's it. Nothing else. So if you have a dedicated space, then you can deduct that. I didn't learn that until I started working with a tax preparer. If I did know that, I didn't know how it worked because I had such a small place, particularly when I lived in San Francisco, that I was basically, if y'all live in San Francisco, you know how small it is. It's like living in New York or Manhattan. And so I would be working halfway into my kitchen. I couldn't deduct that whole space because, right before that, I was making a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Like you can't cross pollinate those things. Tax preparers can get you ready for that. They can also give you insight into the new codes. And if y'all have been following U.S. tax law with the change of the presidency a couple of years ago and all these other things, all the tax codes are kind of all over the place, way more than they were earlier in my career. So they can help you with that. The second thing is that tax preparers are not necessarily cheap. I think the ones that I used to work with would probably run about $300, which, if you're making $10,000 a year is like, I don't know, 7%, 5% of what you made that year. It sounds like a lot. I'm sure it's gotten up higher, because we have a tax preparer that specializes in families. So our rate is different, but that's a quick sidebar. The thing is that if they can find ways for you to get money back or lower your tax bill that is more than the $300 or $200 or whatever you're paying them, then you not only did you come off at least even, you're also getting that gain. That's what I'm kind of getting at. So one thing I actually did was I worked with a tax preparer, and then for a couple of years I actually did things on my own. And now I a family, I'm married, we got kids, we got a mortgage. Like, it's way too complicated for us to do on our own. There's all these deductions and things that we would absolutely miss. Wife and I are smart, but that's not our specialty. You go to a specialist, you pay them a few $100s, you get it done, right? Just because you work with a tax preparer this time, that doesn't mean you need to commit to them the next year. In other words, if you can afford it, if you can swing it right now, I'd recommend checking in with a tax preparer. getting that insight, getting that game. And if you don't want to rock with them that following year, there's usually no commitment. You can just be like, no, I got other plans, or you can work with a different one. But don't be afraid of that. It's similar to working with an agent when you're trying to get a book deal, right? Or you go into Hollywood, with your headshots versus you talking to someone at CAA or something, which you're not going to come in entry point, but you talk to somebody at CAA at some point, and they're giving you all this insight. Even if you guys don't work together as agents, or in this case, tax preparer, you still get that game. All right. All that said, if things are a little bit tight or a little bit funny, you can actually start to do stuff on your own. I mess with QuickBooks, and I salute to them, because they were the joints that I started with. I remember to this day, me living in New Orleans, suddenly the accent comes back, me living in New Orleans, working on my taxes, and QuickBooks rocking with me. Now, what I didn't put into this link is that this link is for QuickBooks for freelancers. Folks like me, maybe folks like you. If you have a side hustle, guess what? You're a freelancer too. So this is actually redesigned. This software is redesigned to do that. They have a subscription model right now. Back in the day, I'm not going to tell you how many years it is, but if you read my books, you'll know when I was in New Orleans, you just paid for it outright. In this case, it's actually a subscription model, so you can rock with it all year long and just plug your stuff in. The challenge with the old model is that it was only one piece of software. Like most stuff, if you know tech, you understand this. Even if you're into tech at all, there's always updates. Imagine what's happening with the tax code. So I was trying to work with QuickBooks. No shots at QuickBooks. I was trying to work with QuickBooks back in the day. And I was trying to get the updates because the tax codes were changing, and update systems were way harder back then. Again, this is several years ago. This new joint, it's actually cloud-based, and it's subscription-based. So you can go ahead and rock with it. At least here in the States, you got about 5 more days, whatever Monday is, today's Wednesday. You got 5 more days, 5 full days to go and get your stuff done. If you're procrastinating, I've been there before, zero judgment. But I've been there before, which is why I'm saying this. If you're procrastinating getting your taxes done, if getting a tax preparer is cost prohibitive, and or they're way too freaking busy, right? My partner and I are locked in with our tax preparer, so we've been talking with them for the past year since we did the taxes last year. But if you're not locked in, it might be too late for that. Check out the new QuickBooks. They got one. Again, the link's right here. I am an affiliate with them, and I'm only doing affiliate stuff as far as me supporting them and them supporting me. I'm only doing the affiliate stuff with things that I have used and or things that I trust. There's one of them. I could tell stories about me and QuickBooks back in New Orleans. So I've known them for a freaking while. They updated their program. Stuff looks really slick now. If I was talking to my younger self, I would absolutely rock with it, particularly for the price points that they have at this moment. I don't know if it's going to change, so that's why I'm not saying numbers, but numbers look really good. Be sure and check it out. Another platform that actually might help you is Notion. I'm relatively new to Notion. If you've been using Notion, I know a lot of you are hardcore about it. Raise your hands or throw something in the comments. I know people who are hardcore about Notion. For old head or old school guy, whatever term you want to use, neither one is insulting to me. For old school folks like myself, Notion is kind of like the new Evernote. If y'all rocked with Evernote, which was the logo with the elephant head, 10, 15 years ago, Evernote was the thing. You could save projects on there. You could do multimedia. That was a period of time when Twitter and all those things were just starting to pop off. And you had online only articles, which were a really big deal, but there's no way to organize them. And Google was messing with the RSS feeds. If you weren't there, you won't know what I'm talking about. But it was a period of time where media was kind of chaotic and it was not streamlined. So you needed some way to organize it. Evernote back in the day would allow you to take a picture of a magazine article, back when people read magazines. I have a master's in magazine publishing, so I can talk my talk. Back when people read magazines, you take a picture of a particular article, take a newspaper clipping. Back when you used to clip the newspaper, that's what they called it, clippings. Back when you used to clip the newspaper. And and then you could have like a podcast and throw a link to the podcast and put it all on the same thing. From the little bit of time I spent with Notion, because I just got hit to it recently, it feels very similar, but better. I was never hardcore with Evernote, but I knew a lot of people at work. It feels like the same type of movement with Notion. Here's what Notion does. It allows you to organize all this multimedia. And I'm mentioning this because if you're like me, like I did a keynote in Benton Harbor. Shout out to Lake Michigan College. I appreciate y'all. About a year ago, you can actually check out the entire keynote on my YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll find the link here on the channel at youtube.com/BrownDamon. To do that, I rented a car. So that's an email receipt. You know, I bought dinner. My mom is in the Midwest, so I think I bought her dinner or something. Receipt. You know what I mean? I got gas, another receipt. All this stuff is all over the place, and all this stuff is tax deductible, at least partially deductible, because that will go into I think they call it meals and travel or travel and meals. Excuse me. I think they changed the name, but you know what I'm talking about. There's actually an area for that, particularly for freelancers. If you're running a business and you have a business dinner, part of that is deductible, not the whole thing. I know that part. Learned that the hard way, but part of it. So please don't come to Las Vegas and come balling out on the strip and then expect all of it to be a tax write-off. No, that's not. Tax write-off is different than tax deductible. Tax deductible, that means part of it, I believe it's 50% of it is deductible. Anyway, you're organizing all this stuff. That's just from one keynote. I did other travel last year. How do you organize all that? Notion feels like a solution to me. I just started working with it earlier this year. Not in time for this tax year. Being transparent with y'all. So I really needed it in 2022. This year, I'm trying to get myself together a little bit better. I got a couple piles of receipts. I'm not going to get detailed, but if you're independent, you know how that works. Notion will help you organize all that multimedia. I just got some car work done, some car maintenance, and they emailed the receipt. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so that the car maintenance is related to my business, right? So it's like, so how do I fit that in there? The cool thing about Notion, and I didn't see this as much with Evernote, but again, if you were an Evernote user, is about 5-6 years ago, they made some changes to their plans and everything went downhill from there. Sorry, Evernote. I got to keep it real with y'all. It was, you guys kind of fell off at that period of time. I think Notion kind of started up a couple years ago, and now it's taking that wave. I don't remember with Evernote there being a ton of collaboration tools. There might have been one or two where it's like you start I think they call them boards, similar to Pinterest. You got a little Evernote board, and then you can share it with somebody, be like, hey, I'm planning this trip. I just want to show you where I was going to go. With Notion, there's a whole different vibe where, number one, it's cloud-based, 100% cloud-based as far as I understand. But then number two, it's actually built for teams. So when I did my startup Cuddler, we did it in 2014. Man, that's crazy. So 9 years ago, you know, me and my two co-founders were just starting Cuddler, actually, as we speak, in April of that year, April, May, something like that. It was right after the TED conference, so it must have been 9 years ago. And we were collaborating, but the tools that we were using to collaborate were very limited. And my co-founders were in Canada and in the UK. So different time zones. Skype was just starting to move. Facebook pretty much was just invented. Not Facebook, FaceTime. I was getting mixed up. FaceTime was just invented. Something like Notion could have saved us a lot of time. And so if you rock with Notion, obviously it says affiliate, so you know where I'm going to go. I am an affiliate with Notion. I like their message. I like their wave. And if I can look at my successful startup 9 years ago and be like, yo, if this tool was around, we could have even did better, then I don't know how much more of a cosign I can give. So if you're doing stuff on your own, or even if you're not, if you have a tax preparer, check out QuickBooks. If you're doing it on your own, you need some type of software. Please don't do it on pen and paper and be looking through their the IRS, at least here in the States. The IRS is Internal Revenue Services pamphlets and try to figure it out. I'm a reader, I'm a writer, and No, get help. If you can't afford or rock with a tax preparer, do that. And then, like I said, if you're trying to organize your stuff, if it's not too late, get it done this year. But if it's too late to organize it in this way this year, go ahead and rock with it this upcoming year using Notion. They also have a new tool, which I didn't get a chance to mess around with, called Notion AI, which is supposed to help with teams collaborating and creating new stuff. The link is there. Check it out. I'm going to go in and hopefully do a deep dive on it later in this year. If it makes sense, let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video about it. I am curious about it. Again, it's a Bring Your Show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free. If you're listening, just click the link to the channel and you'll get the shorts, which I'm doing about a short a day now. It's like the 60-second clips with highlights from the show and from other shows. And then the show, again, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. The Wednesday shows, whenever possible, are live. If they're not live, then either I won't have a show that day or I'll do an encore episode. I'll be at TED next week, so you can look out for some type of encore that's happening. Let's look at another question here. And this is one that comes up quite a bit. Should I create an LLC or should I do a sole proprietorship? Really quick description. Again, not a CPA, not a tax expert, but just give you some quick context. Sole proprietorship means I'm doing something, creating something on my own. I'm a solo entrepreneur or a solopreneur, usually a solopreneur, and I'm just going to create this. And this will just be another tax form. I forget the name of the form in the US, but I fill it out every year. But I'll just do an extra tax form, business form. I can see the form, but I can't remember the name of it. So many numbers and letters, something C. But I'm going to fill this out, and then I'll do my business deductions and charges and taxes on it based on that. LLC actually separates you from your business. And it's saying, okay, this thing is a standalone thing. It can, from a law standpoint, it can help protect you from lawsuits, I believe, or at least help protect your assets. My wife and I have a trust for our family, so our assets are already partially protected. But that's a whole other discussion. If you have a family, pay the rack, as they say, or $1,000. Just get a will and a trust done. If you got any resources that you think are worthwhile to give to somebody else, and you're trying to create something that's generational, please get your trust together. But LLC will help protect you from that as far as stuff going on with your business. It also makes it, I guess I wouldn't say easier, but you doing your taxes is kind of like a separate event. And so you can separate your personal from your business a lot more. The freelancers that I know are kind of half and half, actually leaning more towards the sole proprietorship. And then some have done the LLC. Some of it depends on the type of work that they're doing. So if you're an investigative reporter and you're doing something on, crimes related to some type of mafia related family, but it might be of a different culture, and someone sues you for libel, if it's written, slander means that you said it on the air or it was spoken. That publication that you're writing the article for, depending on what the contract you signed with them, they might be able to take care of you in court, and they might be like, yo, you're a freelancer, so good luck with that. Not as far as your life being threatened, but more like a lawsuit against you. LLCs, from my understanding, help protect against that, because you're like, yo, that's my business entity over there. So if you want to bankrupt that business, go for it. But you're not going to touch the property, the house I live in, all that stuff. It's a separation of church and state, essentially. So it helps with that. I'll give you a simple example. When we did Cuddler, the app that we sold, we sold it now 8 years ago. My co-founder actually created an LLC. He did it right before I came on board. So smart on him. Shout out to you, Charlie. And so he created an LLC. So then when we sold the company, it wasn't Damon Brown and the two co-founders are selling this company. It was like, no, this LLC is being purchased, and the proceeds of that purchase are going to these three entities, me being one of them, right? Because we end up getting acquired for a profit. That's an example of you absolutely should have LLC, right? Because it makes it much more easier to deal with it for tax purposes, to get individuals paid. When we got acquired, it wasn't some funny stuff as far as, oh, we're going to pay this individual. And remember, we lived in 3 different countries. Again, I was in the United States. I was in San Diego at the time. So I was in the US. One of our co-founders was in Canada. And again, the other co-founder was in the UK. So it's like, it would have been a mess tax-wise too. Instead, the LLC was based, I believe, in the UK. Okay, that was done. Okay, and now the proceeds of that LLC will be distributed to these 3 owners based on the percentages that we banged out earlier. Do not get me started, because I'm so glad that we had those tough discussions, about 3 weeks worth of discussions, to figure out how much of the pie was going to be split up. And we talked about that well before we got acquired. So when we got acquired, it was some heated and intense discussions with the potential acquirers and amongst each other, to be honest, to be real. But none of that discussion was who owned what, because those are already written out in contract. I have an episode that talks about this more. In fact, it is worth taking a moment, because now I'm thinking about it. We got to talk about it. So give me a moment. So, all right, here we go. And so this is one of my favorite episodes, because I keep it 100, and as they say nowadays, and I keep it gritty and honest as far as the challenges that happen with partnerships, which ties into the LLC conversation. Well, through partners, good and bad partnerships. I might change the title because it's a mouthful, but the video was done about 1.5 years ago. And I share it with my coaching clients who are looking at co-founderships. I know some that have dissolved co-founderships. Like, stuff happens. Let's be real. Shit happens. It just does. In any partnership, whether it's a marriage or business partnership, friendship, like, well, particularly when you get business involved, which is marriage and co-foundership, they're actually very, very similar. I've done both. They're very similar. Then it can get complicated really quickly. These give the guidelines based on my, like, it's not even talking to experts. It's like just my experiences being partners several times over. Only been married once, but all these books right here, the middle of my book catalog, which is about 8, maybe 10 books. I've done 26. I did about 10 books in a row that were co-authorships. I'm still sharing royalties with folks now because we're still getting checks. Those relationships, some of them went not so great. Some of them went fantastic. Some of them I'm so cool with now, but we're all making money together. Same thing with being married. So you want to understand those different things. This goes back to the LLC or the sole proprietorship, because that might determine what kind of partnerships you have. That might determine whether you create one. We created an LLC, or Charlie created an LLC for Cutler. Again, I appreciate his foresight. Thank God he did. Made it a lot easier. You might not need a sole proprietorship in the beginning. Again, this goes back to the tax preparer thing, where there's a certain amount of game that you can get. I know for a lot of my stuff, I haven't needed to do anything beyond my own business, like a sole proprietorship and all those things. But I know that because I've been talking to tax preparers for umpteen amount of years. Let's just say a couple decades. So that's how I know. It's not just making stuff up, right? So speaking of the money management and figuring out what you should do next, I have a show that came out, I think this was the top of the year. Had to be the top of the year. And it was a triple live show. I think it was the first, second, and third week of January. Earn more indie money in 2023. First one was start your business. Second one was build your profit. And third one, my favorite, if you've been a fan of the channel and you know my books, Passive Income. It's 3 episodes rolled into one, and then I'm doing the encore of it. Check it out. This will give you more insight. Another one, which will fall into the 2 books that I'm about to recommend for y'all, is What to Do with a Financial Windfall. And you might be saying, Damon, I would love a financial windfall. But with a financial windfall, what's the name of this episode? Tax and money tips. The more you make, the more you're going to be giving to your local, regional, and federal government. That's kind of the way taxes work. I remember talking to one tax preparer, and he's like, the good news, Damon, is that you made a lot more this year. And I actually made more than I thought I did. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, the bad news is that you owe a lot more. This is several years ago. And I was like, what kind of, right? Because it wasn't like the money was just sitting in my account. And I was like, I don't feel like I made more last year. And of course, it's like April. So it's like that money has already been allocated. Some of it might be in savings, but I'm like, that doesn't give me any comfort. It just makes my ego feel better. Excuse me. If you have a financial windfall, or even better, if you know you're about to get a financial windfall, some of the work I do, like if I know I have a book deal and I'm negotiating it, I know I got a big check coming, maybe a couple, because they sometimes break up the payments. If I already know that, then I'm like, all right, well, I need to get into that mindset. This will help you with your mindset. It's a short video. It's probably about 6 minutes long. I've shared this one a lot with my clients too, because that's part of the independent game. Money goes up and down. You want to make sure that you're ready. So speaking of money going up and down, one of my favorite books, Sudden Money by Susan Bradley. And I think she has a new co-author, Mary Martin. I think it's Mary Martin. Excuse me. There's two actresses that have a similar name. And it's messing with my brain a little bit. But you can click on the link and learn more about it. This book, oh, here it is. This is how long I've had this book. It's hardcover, dog ears. I can't remember what the cover looks like because I took it off. I got this book. I might have got it from my mom. I can't remember. But somehow I got to this book. And I got it ages ago. But it was when I really started making money. Like, again, the book deal started coming in and stuff. And I'm as I say in my books, I'm used to ramen noodles. And now, I got 5 figures in my bank account just sitting there. It's not allocated for anything. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Am I supposed to invest this? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, there's a nervousness that comes with this. I talk about this again in the windfall one. Like, I talk about this exact scenario. So if you want to go deeper, all the links are below. And this book breaks it down. Now, what works well with Sudden Money is that it's actually geared towards people like us, right? So a small part of it is dedicated to lottery winners, which I wish you the best of luck. I'd rather create something that y'all find of value and then, become a millionaire, billionaire, whatever, based on that. That's my route. I'm not, shout out to my family members that do the scratch offs. That's not my vibe. Most of this book, though, is about athletes and about creators. And athletes have a lot in common with us as creators. Some of you're not an athlete. Some of us are both. I'm not an athlete. But we have that in common in that, the Michael Jordan movie airs, I think came out a couple of days ago. And you think about him being, essentially a country boy, because he was a boy at the time, a country boy, I want to say from the Carolinas, I want to say North Carolina, very salt of the earth, as we would say down south. So very humble people. And then suddenly, he gets caught up in high school, and it's like, and he negotiates that stuff with Nike, and suddenly he's a millionaire many times over too. You're grinding it out on an app, you're bootstrapping things, and then suddenly your app becomes the number 1 app in the world. And then within 6 months, people start coming in and say they want to acquire the app. Like, and they want to give you a nice amount of money for it. Like, that mental shift can mess with you. I've been to that mountaintop a couple of times, and I'm not saying that as a flex. What I'm saying is that I know what it's like to be at the top, and I know what happens afterwards. And as someone who's been up there a couple of times, I want you to trust me with that, where it's like that mental shift. You might really want that. You really might want all that money. You might want all that fame, but there's a mental shift that needs to happen. This book talks about that. I think the term they use, fantastic term, I think I might have stolen it and used it a few times over the years, is they call it falling down the chute. So when you get that call, or you call to check your lottery numbers, or you get that call back and the agent says, yo, you got a 6-figure deal. So yeah, they're gonna be paying us within like a week. It's not usually that fast, but just play with this scenario. Right? Book industry is a lot slower, or when you wake up, happened to be my birthday. You wake up on your birthday morning, and you check the app store, your phone's blowing up, you check the app store, and you have the number one app in several countries, including the 3 countries in North America. Like, it happens just like that. It's happened to me several times. That's why I'm a coach, because I know what happens. It happens quick. She calls that falling down the chute. And when you're falling down the chute, you do not want to make big dramatic decisions that could have tax implications, that could break up things with family members, because it gets great, particularly when you're talking about money, et cetera, et cetera. Fantastic book. It is expensive. This is a $50 book. But if you're doing 5,000, 50,000, bless you in the future, 500,000, $500,000 deals, you're not going to pay $50 for the book. I talked about this with some other books. Another book of mine, not my book, but another book that I copped. Money Was Tight. I paid $50 for the book. Made a difference of tens of thousands of dollars. No cap. So if this direction you think you're going to be going in, and or you can afford, you have the resources to grab the book right now, please just grab it. Again, this joint has been on my shelf for ages. It's not leaving my shelf either. The only reason I took it off the shelf is because I put it right here to show you. After that, it's going right back on the shelf for the next big decision I have to make. Last book recommendation would be Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Shout out to Mike. I said hi to you, I think, online during one of your events. We chatted up very briefly, but I hope you're doing wonderful. Of course, we got similar circles too, so I've been following your work. Shout out to Monique Woodard. Shout out to Mo, because she actually recommended his book, Profit First, before I even knew who he was. The setup is really simple. If you're going to be an independent creator, less so a founder, but independent creator, consultant, anything where you're going to be making indie money, just call it indie money. You need to have some type of framework, some type of system. Otherwise, you're going to be broke, because we tend to get really big checks, and then we don't know when the next check is going to come. I got big checks coming now. I got some other big checks after that, but there's a vagueness to being independent. It's just vague. That's just how it works. I think I'm a damn good independent creator. And even for me, it's a juggle. Profit First is a structure, really simple structure that allows you to put things away for your taxes, intent, put things away for your profit, because you are the owner and you're the employee. I am the owner / founder of Bring Your Worth, publishing, TV show and all that stuff. But I'm also an employee because guess what? I'm doing about 99% of the work. So I should be paid separately just for being an owner. They get into that. And even structuring things for your employees. If you have employees, I don't have any employees, which is why, sole proprietorship makes it even more sense. But all those little details, they get into that. Fantastic book. I got it. I think Monique offered it to me or recommended it to me, I want to say right after my first kid was born, so about 10 years ago. And I got, again, like I said, I had a chance to meet Mike online and appreciate all of his other books. He also has Profit First. It's a freaking series, so shout out to him. I love the series. He's actually broken down Profit First to different things, like Profit First for real estate, not managers, but people that own variety of real estate things. But there's a term for it, but I'm blanking. But for that, I think there's a Profit First for healthcare workers, like just specific. Check it out. Start with this link, and I recommend starting with this book, and then expanding beyond there, and get into those things that you're specific about. One last thing, and a great way to end this show. Really important message here, so please listen. What do I do if I have a tax issue? Contact your tax representatives immediately. Here in the United States, it'll be the IRS. If it's a state issue, then it'll be, within that particular state of Nevada, yada, yada. If it's a city issue, if you have to pay city tax, we usually don't as independents, but if you do, contact your city, whatever. Do a Google search, find them, talk to them. IRS has notoriously long hold lines. Remember, I had an issue with IRS many, many years ago, and I routinely was on hold for an hour at a time. No cap, no exaggeration. But my ass stayed on the phone for an hour because I need to get it sorted. Your tax issue could be that you didn't pay enough, and we have to pay. Can't believe I forgot about this. Estimated taxes. So quarterly, throughout the year, we pay our estimated taxes to the IRS. So by now, we're starting to pay the second quarter of estimated taxes for next year, which as of this recording is 2024. So we're already paying, we pay our estimated taxes for this year, which is 2023. So in 2024, when we turn in our 2023 taxes, a year from now, April of 2024, then we've already accounted for whatever we think our tax is going to be based on the income that we brought in 2023. It is estimate, hence estimated taxes. If you end up being way off with that, if you end up owing a lot more and you're not sure how to pay it, do not ignore them. Do not. It's not a conspiracy theory. Do not screw with it. Contact them, be on hold, be polite, figure out what you can do. The challenges that I've had in the past and challenges that other freelancers have had in the past, most of it had some random challenge where we did the wrong form, we didn't put in enough. Like, it happens. People screw up all the time. It's okay. Number one, working with them, they were extremely kind because I communicated with them a lot. That's number one. I don't think it was because I was a nice guy. I think it was because I respected. I'm like, listen, I screwed up. How can we fix this? This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. Let's find a way to make it work for everybody. But then number two, there are so many different types of solutions that only they know. So they could be like, yo, you owe this amount. Just pay us by the summer and we're straight. And then you got, in this case, it's April, you got a few months to get your money together, get things sorted, whatever. People make mistakes. And at least me working with the government agencies, they were fine. Situation was not comfortable. Let me keep it a buck. But working with them was fine. But the key thing I keep saying is working with them. They were not an adversary. My take is that if my kids are at school, if I'm drinking clean water, and at least the roads here, for the most part in Las Vegas, are decent, then my tax dollars are going to that. So if I had a really good year and I didn't do what I was supposed to do, or I screwed it up, whatever, then I'm happy to make up for it because that's what I owe to having a better society. So part of it has to do with your take on taxes. Not political here. That's your vibe. For me, though, I'm like, hey, let me figure out how I screwed up. Let me make it work. And if you're of the mindset of more money is coming, and you can be of that mindset that more money is coming, much easier if you know what you're doing is serving the world. If you know what you're doing is serving the world, then why would you think that money wouldn't be coming? That's something to think about. Had to put on my coaching hat, keep it real with you. Anyway, if you're having a tax issue, contact your organization immediately. You also might want to go and do a check-in if you can with a tax preparer. If you have the time or the space to do that and be like, look, this is a situation. Can you help me out? It might be good to get some higher wisdom. Again, I am not a CPA. I'm not a financial planner. I have enough challenges planning my own stuff. So I'm not coming at you as an expert. I am coming as an experienced freelancer who's had ups and downs. And hopefully this will help you on your way. Again, it is tax and money tips for creatives. Thank you for tuning in. You can watch the Bring It Work show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1:11 Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free at the link at youtube.com/BrownDamon. If you're watching it live, thank you for coming in and for your comments and your questions and all that stuff. This will be available on replay. If you're listening, thanks for listening. And until next time, remember that you can always bring your worth, that you can always build from now. You take care of yourselves.